Welcome, everybody. Today is Saturday morning. It's January 29th. It's 10:15 a.m., and this is your Weekend Warrior Workshop installment. Thank you all for participating live today, and for those of you who are watching the recording, thank you for practicing. So today's class is going to be a little bit like we have done in the past, hybrid, part lecture and part asana. There's a few things that I want to clarify regarding yoga philosophy today, particularly from some people who have been asking questions or a little confused. So for those of you who have listened in on these lectures before, you may have heard me reference three distinct philosophies or schools of yoga. And I'm not referring to just asana here, yoga poses, but the overarching umbrella philosophies, the way we might approach looking at the world. And those three are the classical view, the Advaita Vedanta or the middle view, and the tantric view. And the reason I want to clarify this is because they all have very distinct outlooks on how we should be engaging or not engaging with the outer world. So the classical view is basically it's a renunciate tradition. The purely classical yogi will consciously choose to renounce as many aspects of this outside world as they can, so that they can keep redirecting their energy inwards and basically find enlightenment or be absorbed into universal consciousness. And there are still many people who practice this way. They look at the outer world as an illusion. Nothing about this world that we're living in is real. Everything's from inside. So in removing themselves from the illusion, the Maya, they can experience a state of truth. Okay. The classical view then is mostly practiced by people who are living renunciate lifestyles. You could compare them in America to, for instance, nuns living in a convent. They're living a celibate renunciate lifestyle. So this would be the people that you often hear about meditating in caves, for instance, for long periods of time, or just living off of a grain of rice or a couple grains of rice per day, like a really small amount of food. That's obviously not a tradition that works for us. Okay. Would living off of 1 grain of rice per day with your lifestyle work for you? It would not. So then we have middle view, Advaita Vedanta. And of course, there are much more like divisions of all of these schools, right? But basically the middle view is looking at the relationship between the outer world and the inner world. And I often address this. How does one influence the other? And then we have the tantric view. And the tantric view is specifically what I'm wanting to talk about today. Tantra was developed, if we were to look at this linearly, it's the most recent philosophy. And it was developed by people who were considered householders. We're all considered householders. We live in this outer world. We have responsibilities, we have obligations and commitments, and many of you have families or children. So how do you apply the teachings of yoga particularly of yama and niyama, which hopefully you all will recall the moral and ethical guidelines of yoga, in a world where it's not always easy to do that. you know, it's not easy to live in this world and feel like you 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 can't be greedy, for instance, right? It's very easy to want more in this world. It's not easy to well, I guess I should say we see things like harm happening, being done from one person to the other. We see people being stolen from. We have what could be considered an enslavement to the senses. We want to consume different foods and different substances. We engage in patterns that are satisfying but futile and oftentimes harmful to us. So this is where Tantra comes into play. It's like applied yoga philosophy. How do we live and engage in this world in a way that is in alignment and in integrity with classically how we've been asked to live? How do you go to your job and are asked to do something that potentially is in obstruction with yama and niyama, but you need to do it to keep your job? What do we do? How do we engage and decide what's the best situation here? I was having a really meaningful conversation with a client the other day about attachment, and the notion that the example we were talking about was wanting to buy something. And if one was practicing a renunciate lifestyle, non-attachment, you wouldn't get that, right? You would just say, I don't need that. We were talking about a purse, okay? Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we could have somebody who's not very aware at all, who decides that all their unconsciously has put all of their happiness eggs and joyful eggs in the idea of owning this expensive purse. And what do we know is going to happen to that purse one day? Can anybody tell me? What is one of the main laws in this world?
It's not permanent. It's going to
Yes, very,
Disposable.
very good. Well done. That purse will not last forever. And so your happiness, if it's dependent on that purse, will not last forever. Now, we are also living in the outer world, and we need a purse sometimes to carry our things around. So what do? And the answer from a tantric perspective, from the perspective of living on the edge, that's what the word tantra means, living on the razor's edge, is basically saying, yes, buy the purse, enjoy it, but know that and be mindful that you're not attaching yourself to it, right? So it's not saying, we're not saying in this tradition that you can't have things. I'm saying go and have a lot of things and enjoy them. Buy the nice car if you can afford it. Buy the nice house, take yourself out to dinner, have a glass of wine. I'm in 100% support of all of those things. But the key is using your, it's called viveka, or discernment, to decide when enough is enough. When you're placing too much of your attachments or your desires on an outside object. We need to constantly remember that peace and happiness are always available to us, regardless of the outer world. Does that make sense? So now it becomes, like you've heard me say, a give and take, ebb and flow. Life becomes an inhale and an exhale. I'm going to lean into this right now. I'm going to actively engage here, but I'm going to pull back here. I'm going to give here and I'm going to take here. And what informs those choices is an embodied awareness to your own heart and knowledge, deep knowledge and knowing of the yogic principles. That's how you live a happy life and you apply yogic teachings to this world. So before I move into the next kind of segment here, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, if anything, any questions have come up around that regarding any of the yamas and niyamas or certain situations, even that you would find challenging that you want me to address in life. Does anybody have anything they want to share about that?
It's always about putting in practice as the moment arises. When you talked about attachments, whether it be a family member or any person or any item or any circumstance, just the awareness, how to keep that awareness, that's always been like, as soon as I see myself getting attached to something, at that time I forget. And then later on, I'll remember, oh, I shouldn't have bought that purse. But the
Right.
moment passed.
Exactly. So it always comes down to your awareness. And if you want to actively engage and buy the purse, then do it. But just know that it's not the cause of your happiness. And of course, be grateful for what you have, which kind of goes on set. It kind of comes automatically with this sort of work. And piggybacking on that point, the reason we practice regularly is because we're kind of asked to practice and bring these things into our awareness when the stakes aren't that high, right? So that when the stakes get really high, like when something serious happens, your job is on the line or your relationship is on the line, you can mindfully engage with that situation in a much better way. You can be informed by the teachings and things that we contemplate here on the yoga mat. Any other comments before I move on? Okay, very good. So then in this spirit of living on the razor's edge, we're going to explore that in today's asana practice. Because living on the edge is something that you'll hear a lot of, like getting to the edge of a pose is something that you'll hear a lot of yoga teachers say. It basically means finding that place where the sensations are at their, let's say, most intense before you cross the edge into the zone of injury. And it's called playing the edge. If you don't get to the edge at all, you kind of foster dullness. Your practice becomes a little bit boring. Nothing's happening. So in every pose, even if it's an active practice or a yin practice, there's always an edge. There's that moment in the body, and the mind will get there too, where you're not contemplating, you're not overzealous, you're just present, and you're engaged. You're actively engaged with the sensations and the things that are coming up in the body. So that's what we're going to look at today. If you need to change, I want to sit for a little bit longer. So if you need to change your position, feel free to do that. Or if you just need to stretch your legs out, you can. I'm going to close the eyes now and we'll move into some centering. And you become aware of your breath. And can you let the awareness of your breath bring you a little bit closer into your body? The breath can often act like the bridge between the subtle most nature of the mind and the gross most nature of the body. The breath is the bridge. And regarding your physical seat, can you feel around for where the edge might be? This is similar to what we worked with in class yesterday, finding the center of each pose. You might find that the edge is just slightly forward of center. So you feel like you're actively engaged and present in this moment. That you're not leaning back or swaying back and being too passive, but at the same time that you're not too far forward, overreaching, or anxious. How can you land right on that razor's edge, and what does that feel like physically in your pose right now? Little hint, there will be very little thought and much more awareness of the physicality in the breath. You might find the Ujjayi breath naturally comes into play, which helps anchor the mind and focus it into the body, into the edge. And from this place, can you mindfully join both of your palms together and feel like your awareness is resting on the edge of each palm, touching together. We're already developing a felt sense for what this means to live on the razor's edge. If you have any personal intentions for your practice today, you could recite them right now. Open your eyes. You can bring your hands off to the side and just take a nice couple warm-up stretches here, lifting one arm up over the ear. Anchor down through the respective hip with the same arm that's lifted. You can play around with the bending or straightening of the supporting arm until you feel your edge. You place the hand to the back of the head and turn the chest gently upwards. Letting the inhalation assist you in what we would say is opening the ribs or the muscles around the rib cage. The other side, down through the opposite hip. Maybe the hand goes to the back of the head. Lower that down. And you can walk your hands forward over your crossed legs. Feel free to walk your feet generously forward, more of a box shapes to stretch the outer hips here. Pay attention to which leg is crossed in front. We're going to switch in a moment. You can sit up tall. Work with your right leg and reach it straight out to the side. You can keep your left heel drawn in. Crawl both hands forward, framing the left knee. Roll your right hip up a little bit until you feel the stretch in the upper right inner thigh in the groin area. Find your edge here in the stretch. I imagine this one will be pretty easy to find the edge. Lean into it there and breathe. While you're holding on the edge, using the right leg, can you, from the thigh bone, rotate the toes upwards and inwards? This is a small movement, turning the right thigh bone in and out. Don't strain from your knee. Just work from the top of the thigh bone, even if you only get 1 inch of movement in each direction. And you can sit up tall. Pull the right heel. Well, let's cross the other leg in front. And then fold forward. Find your edge and breathe. Up tall. And then the left leg going out to the side, right heel drawing in. Turn your body so it's facing the right knee. Frame your hands around the knee. Lean towards that leg until your left hip starts to roll up. You feel that stretch in the inner thigh. Find the edge, breathe and hold. And while you're holding, from the top of the left thigh bone, turn the toes out and in. And the next time the toes are turning inwards, see if you can just easily flip over and come to a hands and knees position. Curling the toes under and leaning back and towards the heels until you feel a stretch for the bottom of all the toes. You might need to manually pull the baby toe under a little bit, depending if it's small. Keep pressing into the floor with your arms so you have some resistance, somewhere to go. Find the edge. Hold your awareness there and breathe. Nice slow and full breaths. Three more breaths. Just try to stay there. I know it might be getting intense. You can always take a break and come back into it. Shift forward to your hands and your knees. Please go to your elbows if you need some more support for your wrists. And it's cat-cow. Just warming up the spine. You could flatten your feet or you could have your toes curled. Now, as you continue cat-cows, try to add some shoulder rolls. So if you round, just roll the shoulders up towards the ears and forward. Then roll the shoulders down and back as you lift the chest upwards. Really reach into the shoulders, like really press. Then, a few more. This time when you lengthen and extend, also roll the left ear to the left shoulder. Then roll the head down when you round. Then roll the right ear to the right shoulder. So you're adding these shoulder rolls and movement, like half or really quarter rotations of the neck and the head. When you get to the middle, you can tuck the toes under again and we'll move into a downward facing dog or any variation you'd like. Wherever you are, just try to find the edge of your pose. There's even an edge in child's pose. It's not so much felt physically, it's in the mind. Feel free to pedal through the heels, bend and stretch the elbows, shake the head yes, nod the head no, whatever feels good for you here. Good open and close your hips. Then you can walk your hands all the way back to your feet. We are moving into a dangling pose. You can hold on to your opposite elbows. Bend your knees enough that the spine can be long and there's no strain in the lower back. And then from that place, start to straighten your legs until you find the edge. We're gonna hold here for probably a couple minutes. If you get dizzy easily, or you're not supposed to have your head below your heart, you can put your hands on blocks and stay in a halfway version with your head elevated. And at any point, you can stand up or go to child's pose if you need to make a quick exit here. Otherwise, try to stay on your edge for the next couple minutes and breathe and just let the spine progressively release. You don't want to make your body sway, but when you breathe, you might notice that your body does kind of sway or dangle a little bit. As you hold, you'll notice that your body continues to let go of tension that it doesn't need. If the edge starts to feel like not so much of the edge anymore, then you just go to the next moment, the next place where you feel it again. That by extension is how we expand, how we grow. So please take your time. You can roll up or hinge up if you have any issues with your back. Take your time, nice and slow. If you start to feel dizzy, definitely go hold on to something or put your knees on the floor. Have your palms facing forward. You can close your eyes if you're not dizzy, otherwise just look downwards. And here in mountain pose, try to find your edge. You start by tipping your weight a little bit forward of center, almost like you were about to peek over the edge of your mat. If you go too far forward, you'd literally fall, right? Or your heels would lift. If you're leaning too far back, if you're not close enough to the edge, it'll feel like you're just kind of hanging out there and being too passive. It's not a very nice feeling to be kind of dull and bored. You want to be on the edge of your experience. Let your body shape itself into this easily aligned mountain pose. You can stretch your arms out to the sides and up over the ears, making a steeple shape with your hands. So you're interweaving the fingers, but the index fingers are pointing upwards. And reach up higher through the right and then the left sides. Like you're just creating more space inside of your body. And you can side stretch to the right. Keep anchoring down through the left foot. Up the vertical and to the other side. And to vertical. Then you can bring the arms out in front of you and bend your knees into your first chair pose. And try to find your edge here. 5 breaths. If there's somebody who's not used to finding the edge, right away, these poses are going to feel more challenging. But you're also going to feel like you're able to handle it because you're just present and you're there for the experience. Definitely gets harder when you find your edge. And fold forward. I guess if you're somebody who tends to overdo everything, then finding your edge might be feeling a little bit easier, like you're leaning back. That could be the case too, depending on which end of the spectrum you're on. Let's walk forward to plank pose. Make sure you have a nice long stance. You could do this on your elbows if your wrists are tired. You could also put your knees down for more support. Find the edge of plank pose. Leaning. Usually people need to lean a little more forward. Arms and legs squeezing together. Breath is smooth. Five breaths, more. Lower down the knees. Shift your hips forward and shrink down all the way to the belly. Stretch your arms out in front of you. If you are on a hard surface, you could put a blanket under your hands here for some roll-ups or slide-ups. So you can anchor down through the legs, and when you inhale, slowly slide up. Keep your arms really straight. Exhale, slide down. Continue at your own pace. There's also a really nice massage for the belly. Two more. Last one, you can hold the lift, find your edge. The legs pressing down, the hips pressing down, the chest curling up. If you want to make your hands wider for more support, you can. While you're holding this pose, it's called gecko pose. You could take some gentle half rolls with the neck and the head again. And then the next time the neck and the head are in the middle, go ahead and slide down again. We're going to move into a chest stretch now. So if you have a block or a blanket, I would recommend putting it under your head. You can reach your left arm straight out to the left, not higher than the shoulder. We're not doing that variation today, just straight out to the side. Turn your head to the right, so your left ear is on the block or the blanket. And lean onto the left side of your body. So the left arm is behind you. Some of you might be able to cross the right leg behind as well. So you find the edge of that stretch going through the chest and the inner arm. Press strongly down through that extended arm, especially through the hand of that arm, equally through the baby side and thumb side of the hand, to help you find the edge. Nice full breaths. You can flip onto the belly. We're going to go to the other side. The right arm is reaching straight out to the right. Turn your head so the right cheek is on the block. Then roll towards the right side. Find the edge. And breathe. Press equally down through the sides of the right hand. Stretching the chest is so good for shoulder and neck pain. Usually in my practice, I see that people who have neck and shoulder pain, their chest is really tight and it's pulling everything into a locked position. Stay on the edge, a few more breaths. You can unwind. Onto the belly again. This time you can bring your hands by the sides of your chest. Lift up and back to child's pose. Take a moment to appreciate, maybe enjoy the effects of your practice so far. You're welcome to stay here, or you could move into another downward facing dog. For 5 breaths, again, finding your edge. where the sensations are just right, not too little and not too extensive. Then we'll move the toes to the fingers. So we're moving again into a dangling pose at the top of the mat. You might just take notice if your edge is changing. Maybe you feel you can go a little bit deeper into the pose now. Maybe your legs can be a little more straight. And if not, that's fine. Just stay where your edge is. And it's the same thing another couple minutes here. So please modify as needed. If your edge shifts while you're holding the pose, follow it. Smooth, full breaths. About 1 minute remains. Stay on the edge. And slowly, slowly you can roll up. Standing nice and tall with the palms facing forward. Letting your pressure recalibrate. You can sweep the arms out, up and over the ears, once again steepling the fingers. Maybe you can steeple with the opposite finger in front. And side bend to your left. Up to vertical, and then to the right. Up to vertical. Lower the arms down by your sides, and then out in front of you for chair pose. Find your edge. 5 breaths. And you can fold forward. Take step back with your left leg. Spin the left heel down, the legs hug towards each other and upright to warrior two. You might remember to hug into the center first, and then you can extend into the pose. Find where your edge is here. You can experiment with it by leaning back and leaning forward, bending and straightening. Once you're there, we'll hold for 5 breaths. Looks good, everybody. Lower both arms inside of the shin bone. You can heel toe your right foot a little more to the right, and you can be on your fingertips. Then swivel onto the ball of the left foot. So you're in this kind of long lunging position. So you have 2 options here. You could walk your hands a little bit forward, maybe put your elbows on the floor or a block. If you need a little more support, just put your back knee on the ground. We're taking lizard's lunge. Not a pose that I teach very often. So you might very easily find your edge there. Even if the hands are still on the floor and the elbows are lifted. You could turn your right toes, that's your front foot, turn them out a little bit. And we'll hold here at the edge for a minute or so. Feel free to adjust as needed. I tend to like to have my hands on the floor instead of my elbows, or the elbows on the block so the spine can be straight. Nice, Judy. Find the edge, that place where tension dissolves, but you don't move into the zone of injury. Maybe you lean a little more into that right hip. Looks like you're pressing it out to the side. Couple more breaths here. Then you can come onto the hands, they're not already. Slowly lift your hips out of this and swing your front leg back to a hands and knees position. Okay, and then you can just step your left foot forward. We're going to move into warrior two on the other side. Spin the back heel down, lift up the knee. Find your edge. You can lower both arms down in preparation for lizard's lunge on the other leg, swiveling to the ball of the right foot. Option to keep your back knee down or to lift it. You can come onto the floor or to a block. Elbows optional as well. You can turn your left foot outwards. Breathe. Find your edge. You can slowly come out of this, come onto your hands, and shorten your stance some so your hips can neutralize. So the next position is going to be a squat or malasana. So however you want to get there, if you have enough stability, you might be able to just step your back foot forward and drop the hips down with your knees nice and wide. If you need to, you can sit on a block. Or you could put your butt on the floor and just have your legs in front of you with the knees bent and the feet flat. Keep your chest up. It's very easy to kind of lean back too much and be very passive in squat. You want to stay slightly forward of center and find your edge. Looks good, everybody. If there are any variations of malasana that you like to take, some people like to add twists by reaching one arm forward and the other arm up. You could do that. It does make it significantly more challenging to balance. You don't have anything to hold on to, so just keep that in mind. So feel free to play around here. We'll hold for a few breaths. So finish up the side that you're doing if you're doing an asymmetrical pose. And when you're ready, you can bring your hands behind you. So to come out of squat, we're just going to lower to the bottom. You can straighten the legs forward. In Dandasana, flex and point the feet, circle the ankles around. And you can sit up tall and fold forward over the legs. You get a nice little stretch for the counter stretch there. Inhale, draw the abs in, sit up tall again, bring the hands behind you, and then scooch your hips to your heels. So your knees are bent again, but this time you can lie on your back. So the knees are bent and the feet are flat. You can hold on to the edges of your yoga mat. Wrap or roll the upper arms under your body. And then inhale and lift your hips up into bridge pose, all the way up as high as you can. Find your edge without compromising your neck and your shoulders. It should feel like your shoulders are pressing down and your chin is not too lifted or too tucked, just level. Slide forward and down, hugging your knees into your chest, opening out the right arm and twisting your knees all the way towards the left armpit. In a reclining twist. Legs move up through the center and then over to the right near the armpit. Your right hand can rest over the legs. The left arm reaches out. And to the middle. Couple pelvic tilts and tucks, so you find a nice, easy neutral. And then you can straighten the legs forward. Your palms up by your hips. Shoulder blades gently hugging onto the back. Completely surrendering. So whereas the body is asked to do really nothing here, it's going to become more challenging to identify an edge physically. So what you want to do is find the edge of the moment, the breath and the mind. Like your mind's focus is right on the edge of the breathing experience. With very little room for thought, very little room for sleep. It's an engaged rest, Shavasana. Practice that now, just being present on that, on the mind's edge. So alive and awake to each passing moment. Here for the experience. As always, you can remain here for as long as you need. When you feel complete, you can start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Taking your time as you roll over to your side before making your way to a seated position. Again, at the edge of your seat, the edge of the moment. So we're asked to practice over and over again with a sense of enthusiasm and like looking forward to every practice session. How to live your life on the razor's edge. You can practice that every day by simply sitting and being, and practicing being there. Edge of the moment. You can join your hands together. You can bow your head down in acknowledgement and gratitude. Thank you so much for your participation today, and I'll see you next time. Namaste. So before we close out, if I'd love to hear what you thought about the practice, what living on the edge means to you, or what you noticed in your yoga poses when you tried to be on the edge. So if anybody feels inclined to share, please do so. What did you notice?
I felt that I forgot everything else when I was on the edge. All I was thinking or feeling was just that edge and being there. That's it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. I agree. I think it is totally about just being focused and present. It's just being present in that thought, in that moment, and not letting things race into your mind.
Yeah. It's so funny. It almost seems like a contradiction, but it is like that moment. You don't have to think about anything, and yet you
Yeah.
know you'll know what to do.
Yeah,
The answers kind of come forth.
it's a great lesson in life, because if we did that all the time and stopped all the other noise that's going on around us, we would be able to, I think, be happier, honestly.
Exactly.
Yes, easier said than done, but it's worth the practice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Easier said than done. There's just a lot of noise out there.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. That was great.
That was really terrific. And I have to say, my neck feels so much better.
Good. Yeah, I was hoping it would, because I didn't do many exclusive things for that, but just relaxing the whole spine.
I do think a lot of it is like from the rhomboid shoulder area, that it just goes all the way up your neck, and it's much lower than the neck that it emanates from.
Yeah, just stretch your chest is helpful.
Yeah, very true. Thank you so much.
Wonderful practice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Good.
You too.
Stay warm.